This is FRQ number 1 for our second microeconomics review test. It says Cohelus Mining is a monopoly and currently operating at a loss. First thing it wants us to do is draw the monopoly's graph and then label a few things: the equilibrium price and output, average total cost, and the allocatively efficient quantity. So how do we do that? Well, to begin our graph, we start with our axes. Remember, like most things in micro, price and quantity are going to be the two axes that we are dealing with. And from there, we need to add the monopolist demand curve. And the monopolist demand curve is downward sloping, like this, demand curve. And its marginal revenue curve comes down off of the demand curve, like so. Now, if you need a refresher on why the marginal revenue curve kind of bisects off the demand curve and is not equivalent to the demand curve like it is in perfect competition, just real briefly, for a monopolist, if they want to increase the quantity that they are selling, if they want to increase their sales by even 1 unit, well, how do you sell an extra unit? You need to lower the price a little bit. So if they lower their price, they will receive extra revenue from selling that unit. However, when they lower their price, they don't just lower their price on that next unit that they're going to sell. They lower their price on all the previous units as well. So even though they may, say, drop their price from $25 to $20 and then get to sell another unit at $20, their marginal revenue for that last unit is not the $20 they received, because they had to cut their revenue by $5 on all the previous items that they were going to sell, because they have to sell to everybody at the same price. So that extra unit that they sold for $20, the revenue that they get off of it is the $20 minus the lost revenue on all the previous units that they had to cut the price on. So the marginal revenue is actually less than the $20 that they are getting for that unit. And remember, the demand curve shows us sort of the price that's being received at each quantity of output. So, with that being put on the board, we now need the marginal cost curve. Just kind of comes up like a Nike swoosh right there. And then we can go ahead and do parts 1 and 2. We need to label our profit maximizing quantity and price. Remember, the monopolist maximizes their profit by producing where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. And that's right here. So we come down to the intersection of those curves. This is our QM, our equilibrium quantity. And we come up to the demand curve, which again shows us the price that we're going to receive at that quantity. Trace it over. This is the price, the equilibrium price. So we've got QM and PM. The next thing it wants us to do is label our average total cost curve. Now remember, the problem, it told us that we're currently operating at a loss. If we are currently operating at a loss, that means that our average cost is higher than the price that we're getting per item. If we're having to pay more in cost than we receive per item we sell, we're operating at a loss. So the average total cost curve has to be somewhere above the demand curve, right? And if you remember specifically, I don't think they take off a lot of points on this on the AP exam, but technically, the average total cost curve is supposed to hit its bottom point at the marginal cost curve. So you kind of come out like this. The exact reason why the ATC curve bottoms out at the marginal cost curve is a little bit beyond the scope of what they'll test you on the AP exam, though it does help you conceptualize it if you know it. So that's our average total cost curve, and it's above the demand curve because we're operating at a loss. And then the last thing that it wants us to label is the allocatively